Carter Hughes, the helpful veteran. America's voice for veterans today.
Here we go. Your VA disability claim, was it denied? My claim was denied. I've had a claim denied before. If you've had a claim, a VA disability claim denied, we're going to show you today how to turn that denial into an approval. Yeah, you heard me right? We'll show you how to turn that denial into an approval, right? 2 words, favorable findings. Have you ever? Huh? Come on now. And we call this a secret because the VA hides it in plain sight. It's right there in front of you and you still won't see it, right? I looked at many decision letters, didn't see this for a while. So it's right there in front of you, hiding in plain sight. Favorable findings. If you show me the denial, I can show you what's needed for the approval, right? That's kind of how this works. There's 3 reasons that a claim can be denied, just 3. And then there's 2 types of evidence you can use to flip that denial to an approval. 2 types of evidence, records or statements, right? Medical evidence or lay evidence. Just 2 types. Records, they're already generated or whatever, so you have to go and get those. Statements, you can create statements. Yeah. So again, simplifying things. There's only 3 reasons you can be denied. And then there's 2 types of evidence you would use to flip that denial into an approval. So if your claim got denied, this video will help you to identify exactly why it got denied and exactly what type of evidence you will need to trigger this loophole that we're talking about. This loophole, it lets you avoid the appeals process and get straight to a quick reconsideration. Appeals can take years, right? We all understand that. If you ultimately get it approved, it's still a positive thing, right? We'll take $60,000 as opposed to $6,000. I get it. However, when you file a claim and it gets denied, when you look at that denial letter, you'll see it talk about the appeals process, right? The notice of disagreement. I think it's 21-0958 is the notice of disagreement. And that's how you start the appeals process. That's on the decision letter. When you go into an office after you got denied, they're going to talk to you about the appeals process, notice of disagreement, right? And all that stuff. However, the little known secret is that there's something that you can do to force the VA to take another look at your claim without having to enter the appeals process. That's the loophole. But in order to access it, you must have certain things in order to trigger that loophole. And it must be on the correct form, right? They make it a little tricky. Cool. As long as we understand, we can make it to the destination. So in order to access that loophole, you must have what qualifies as new and relevant evidence. So what that means is if you can produce new and relevant evidence, and if you can use the correct VA form, then you can use that loophole to force the VA to quickly reconsider your claim. Couple months instead of a couple years, right? This is a pretty good one, man. So we'll take a look, right? We got the denial letter right here. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. And we see right here, your service treatment records do not contain complaints, treatment, or a diagnosis for this condition, right? That means we have no evidence, records, or statements to show that this condition was caused by service. So that means the first element was denied. We'll put it on the table. And first element denied. Okay, cool. Now, we acknowledge receipt of your medical records which diagnose your current disability. So that sounds like third element's approved. We did not find a link between your medical condition and military service. The link, the nexus, that's the second element. Sounds like they're denying the second element, but the third element, it seems like they're approving that one. VA medical opinion found no link again, second element, between your diagnosed medical condition and military service. Service connection for tinnitus is denied since this condition neither occurred in nor was caused by service. All right. So to me, that sounds like first element denied, second element denied, third element approved. So now you see it right here. Favorable findings. identified in this section. As you can see, this person highlighted it, but that's not how it comes. Favorable findings is a very important piece of this claim. And they don't even put it in bold. They don't italicize it. They don't underline it. And what favorable findings is the VA telling you, even though the claim was denied, this is the element or elements that we did actually approve. That's what they're saying in favorable. It's critical information. Not boldened, not highlighted, not underlined. Right? Is it meant to kind of be there for you to overlook? Possibly. But if you have the understanding, again, you can access these things. Okay, favorable finding. The evidence shows that a qualifying event, injury, or disease had its onset during service. Your military occupational specialty was automated logistical specialist, which has a low probability of noise exposure. Okay, so they're saying there was some noise exposure, a little bit though. So it sounds like they kind of lean in on the first element. They kind of lean in like, maybe. But on the third, okay, you have been diagnosed with a disability. So third element approved. VA examination dated blah, 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 gave a diagnosis of tinnitus. Okay. So to recap, third element is approved. First element and second element are denied. That's where we are right now. So how do we get the first element and the second element approved? How do we do it? How can we create new and relevant evidence that will trigger your entry into that loophole so you can get a reconsideration? You ain't got to mess with the appeals. Go right to the reconsideration. How do we do that? Think about it. We use their rules against them, right? We got to talk, okay, cool. What is evidence? You see it right here. Competent medical evidence, competent lay evidence, right? Evidence as defined by the VA. And I've heard people say the VA doesn't look at your statements, they only look at records. If that is the case, if they've done that to your claim, that's illegal. That goes against their own regulations, right? So you'd want to bring that up and try to get that reconsidered if that is the case. They have to look at the statements. They have to look at the records according to their own regulations, right? Specifically, Title 38, Part 3, and this is 3.159, subheading A, subheading 1. That tells you what evidence is, right? And they got another regulation that says each condition must be considered on the basis of all pertinent medical and lay evidence. We'll put that up there too. That's Title 38 again, Part 3, 3.303, subheading A. They must look at all the evidence. So if you generate statements, they must look at the statements. All right? According to their regulations. All right? So the problem with this one, the first problem is the first element. First element, not approved. How do we solve it? The VA says there's no in-service records. Okay, cool. But they do admit to a qualifying event in service. No records. Okay, we'll use a statement to address why there are no records. What we're saying is the tinnitus was caused by noise exposure. VA acknowledges it's a possibility, but they're saying you didn't go to the doctor though. Cool. We can address both those points in a statement. All right? Personal statements is what we can use for this one. The personal statement is on VA Form 21-4138. That's what you'd use to make a personal statement. Or you could use a but since it's an in service, right? The first element is that in service, caused by service. So you can use a buddy statement also if you have that. Someone you serve with who witnessed you complaining about the buzzing, humming in the ears, they could do a statement as well, right? But in this case, we're going to generate a statement. We'll make our own personal statement and we'll address both points in the statement. So based on what the VA said, right? You got no doctor records, you kind of got some noise exposure. Cool. We'll address that in a statement. And the statement would look something like this. I am filing for reconsideration of my tinnitus disability claim. When I was in the service, going to the doctor was not encouraged, and I did not want to compromise my performance or my standing in the unit. So I chose to tough it out for various injuries. I tried to manage the buzzing and the humming without seeing a doctor. It was a bad decision not to seek medical help sooner, but I was young and I felt pressure to fit into the group. I was exposed to noises such as firearms, explosion, and flight line noises as well. That's the statement. We address why there's no record. From the military, it's a cultural thing, right? Like in the Marine Corps, going to the doctor, yo, get out of here. No. No, right? Once I was in the Air Force, it was kind of different. But even in the Air Force, it wasn't like we're going to the doctor a bunch. No, that's just not the way people operate, you know. Fortunately or unfortunately, depends on how you look at it. But you have that clear testimony right there addressing the VA's points. The VA would now have to disprove that. All right? They'd have to disprove, oh, nah, you didn't do. Okay, cool. Bring on that evidence. But they say I had no doctor records. Here's why. You talk about what I was exposed to. Yes. Here's some of the examples of things I was exposed to. The VA would have to disprove it or explain why it's not relevant to the case. So that first problem is the first element being denied. The solution, personal statement, addressing the specific points that the VA talked about. Records or statements, right? Records, only two types of evidence, records or statements. Medical evidence or lay evidence. Only two types, right? Let us not get confused. So that's problem one. We can solve that with personal statements. Now we got problem two, right? Problem one, we saw problem two. The second element was denied. All right, so how do we prove that? That second element is chronicity, nexus, right? Proving that you've been suffering from this condition since separation up until now, and you still suffer from it. Okay. In this situation for records, on the record side, we got records or statements. Those are the two options. If we take the records path, we'll have to get records showing that we've been getting treatment for tinnitus since we separated from the service. Right? So if you have those records in this situation, you go and get those records. If you don't have them, that's fine. If you do have them, go get them. If you don't have them, that's fine. Right? That's the record side of it. On the statement side, right? You got a few different ways you can approach the statement side. In your personal statement, you can address the post-separation time, right? After separation from the service, this is how the symptoms have affected my daily life. That's one of the statements, a personal statement. Another option is the lay statement from the people around you who can attest, who can say, yes, I witnessed this veteran dealing with the buzzing, the humming, and how they dealt with it, responded to it. They can only speak to the symptoms. That's what makes it lay evidence, lay testimony, right? Because it's not a medical professional. It's a lay person. So a lay person cannot speak to a diagnosis. They can only speak to symptoms, right? Keep that in mind. When you talk about this evidence thing, there is a way that the VA can invalidate a lay statement. And that is if that lay person tries to give a diagnosis, right? So for example, instead of talking about I've witnessed the veteran experience the symptoms of a mental health condition. I've seen him do these things, X, Y, Z. Instead of doing that, you would put on the lay statement, hey, I witnessed their anxiety. No, you can't do that. As soon as you write a medical diagnosis on a lay statement, the VA has the option to invalidate the entire statement because it's no longer a lay statement. Now it's an attempt to be a medical statement by an unqualified medical professional. All right, so keep it lay, keep it symptoms, not diagnosis, symptoms, the thing that they've actually witnessed. All right, so the lay statement, that's another option. So we got personal statement where you can address that post-separation, those symptoms. You got a lay statement that would also be post-separation, but the people around you giving witness statements, talking about the symptoms that you experience. And then you have that nexus statement. The nexus statement would be from a medical professional. All right, so that would be considered medical evidence. From a medical professional, and all the letter would say in this specific situation, the statement would say, in my medical opinion, it is more likely than not that the veteran's tinnitus was caused by their military service. That's what you would need on the nexus statement from a medical professional. Just saying, based on the records, my discussions with the veteran and the environments they were in my medical opinion, I believe it's more likely than not their tinnitus is related to their military service, right? So those are the three options for statement. On the record side, to prove the second element, you're going to need post-separation records, whether that's VA Medical Center or private doctor. Those are the records that would help to prove chronicity. On the statement side, you can use a personal statement speaking to the symptoms you experience post-separation. You can use a lay statement from people around you witnessing symptoms post-separation, or you can use the nexus statement from a medical professional. All right, so for the second element, the problem is the second element was denied. The solution, medical records, and we have the statement options, the lay statement, personal statement, or the nexus statement. All right, so to recap, this denied claim right here, this tinnitus denial, what they're saying is the third element approved, first and second element denied. In order to flip this to an approval, we can generate statements for the first element and the second element. You don't necessarily need to go back and find any records. You can generate statements to address the points, right? And flip this denial into an approval. Right? We try to keep it simple. And on this one, all right, loophole. To trigger the loophole, you got to make sure you use the correct form. The correct form in this situation to trigger the loophole and get that reconsideration, VA Form 20-0995. We'll take a look at the form too, because the form is intentionally confusing in my opinion. The form makes it look like you have to have medical records in order to use it. Is it meant to be confusing on purpose? I don't know. But the regulations state that evidence triggers the reconsideration. Evidence, medical or lay evidence. Again, these are their own regulations. Precisely, Title 38, Part 3, 3.159, Subheading A, Subheading 1, tells what evidence is, right? Evidence can trigger the reconsideration, so it's not just medical records. So how would I write this on the form? You see the box that says other? Put an X in that box and then just put new and relevant lay evidence, or new and relevant medical evidence, or new and relevant lay and medical evidence. That's how you fill out the form. All right? If you don't use this form, it goes into the appeals process. So this form is critical. The VA Form 20-0995. It's right here too. All right? But that's how you do it. Identify which elements were denied, which elements were approved, and we address the ones that were denied. If we have records, go get the records. If you don't have records, create the statements, right? You got ChatGPT, Gemini, all these AI things that can help you create whatever kind of statement you want. Most important thing about the statement is that you address the important points of that claim. In this one, you see the VA specific, hey, you don't have any records of service. Cool, we'll address that. Right? Address the specific points. Flip that denial back on them, right? We take their regulations, flip them on them. Give me my approval, dog. That's kind of how it goes. You know, the denial is not the end. The denial is normally the beginning of redemption. Those appeals could take years and years and years, but if you get it right, you have tens of thousands of dollars coming to you. So regardless of where you are in this process, we want to give you information that can help you to identify within your own claim the opportunity that you can now leverage. Right now that you understand, hold up, I can generate statements for some of these. Let me go take another look and see if I can generate a statement that will be considered new and relevant evidence to trigger that reconsideration. Right? If you're outside the time frame, then yeah, you got to do an appeal. But still, understanding that you can generate statements to prove certain elements of this VA disability claim. Come on now. Knowledge is power. And we want you to be as powerful as possible in this space of veteran disability benefits. And as always, learn the information. Come on now. Use the information. Come on now. And if you deem it to be valuable, don't be selfish, man. Share the information. We want everyone to have that basic understanding so now they can get more of what they're entitled to. We know some people ain't gonna like it. Oh, man. Have an incredible day, baby.